In this video, we're going to run through the second example that we showed in the Aspire for AlphaCAM presentation at the 2011 Planet Global Reseller Conference. This was based around the newel post that John created, and essentially the idea here is to show how we can take both 3D and 2D geometry out of AlphaCAM, put that into Aspire. Then within Aspire, we're going to showcase its ability to adjust and manipulate an existing 3D object to create a variation on that object and then take that data back into AlphaCAM again. So the starting point for this in AlphaCAM is to open the file which I'll supply because it is a little different to the one that John sent me, which is called newel post or to newel post edit.ard. So here we can see the model of the newel post, and I'm going to rotate this into a position where we can kind of see a 3/4 view, and we'll just say zoom all so we can see that there. Now we're going to take two parts of this newel post over into Aspire. The first part is the recessed area at the top, the semicircle. Second part is going to be the post face itself. So first here I'm going to come up to the 3D, select work plane and choose existing geometry, and we're going to select the curve which is underlying there. Come up to File, Export to Aspire. Again I'm going to select the same curve, right mouse click in order to accept that. Come over to Aspire for AlphaCAM, create a new file. This time I'm going to come down and change the units to millimeters, and we're going to put in 200 by 200, and the XY origin position needs to be in the center here. That's very important. I'm going to set the modeling resolution to very high, hit OK, right mouse click and paste, and there is our semicircular geometry from AlphaCAM. Now we'll go ahead and import the file that we would like to work with in this case. I'm going to come to the Modeling tab, up to Import a Component or 3D Model. I'll provide you with this file here, Flourish86. This is a file from the Vector Art 3D website. It could be purchased for $25 if you want to give people an indication of where it's come from. It could also, of course, be modelled if you wanted to take the time inside of Aspire. Here we're just going to try and take advantage of something that exists and show the power of Aspire to edit this. So with that selected, I'm going to hit open. There I can see it in the 2D view. If I go to view, tile windows vertical, I can see that in the 3D view as well. I'm going to take that shape and hold the shift key and select the outline. I'm going to use the icon here to align objects, center objects. So make sure that you've got the component selected first, then shift and select the outline to do that. I can see that that's the mathematical center, but it's not really the pleasing visual center. So I'm going to select that again and just use the arrow keys and maybe just move that down. Maybe we'll click the arrow 3 times at this zoom in order to move that into position. If I want to, I could even stretch this part. If I click on it again, we can come to the top and just stretch that up a little if we want to. So you can show how easy it is to edit and manipulate this object in regard to this location. Now what we've done so far, I would assume you could probably do inside of AlphaCAM if you had the STL for this file. Next though, what we're going to do is show here how easy it is to split part of this model off and use a copy of that to augment it to make it a little more complex. I'm going to come to the Drawing tab, I'm going to come to the Draw Polyline tool. What I need to do is zoom in here and draw a line that starts almost pointing vertically up, comes down into this kind of inlet here, and then comes out and around and ends up almost pointing vertically down. I'm going to select that once I've finished drawing it, grab these two nodes, go into node editing, hit N on the keyboard, grab those two nodes and hit S on the keyboard to smooth those nodes and just adjust them so that this line is coming down through here and out across the bottom there. Hit Escape on the keyboard to go out of the node editing mode and hit F to fit that into the view there. Next I'm going to select the object, I'm going to shift and select the line, go to the Modeling tab and when I come to this icon here, to split the selected component using a vector. What that's going to do is create two components for me from that original one based on splitting them with that line. And you can show how that has been divided by double clicking on the two different elements in the 3D view. Now what I want to do is create a copy of this one. So I'm going to right mouse click, go to rename, and we'll call that leaf, and I'm going to select that from the 2D view, click on it again to go into the transform mode, and hold Control on the keyboard. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag that upwards, and when I do that we'll make a copy of that, and we can see that in the 3D view. What I can do now is rotate that, and I'm going to rotate it around probably 45 degrees, and just hold the shift key down, sorry, not hold the shift key, I'm going to come over the top left hand part of the shape there and just adjust that and move it into position that you see there. Now you may need to practice and play around with this to get it to the place where you'd like it to be. If you need to, you can zoom in and you can adjust it dynamically until you're happy with the way that looks. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to hit F to fit. I'm going to take that, use the shortcut key Control, Shift and H in order to make a horizontal copy of that across the part, and then again I would take all those components, select them all, and say convert the current Aspire model for use in AlphaCAM. We'll click on that. Now working in metric, so we can go with 0.01 tolerance, hit triangulate, hit the button to export to AlphaCAM, we go back to AlphaCAM, go up to 3D, cancel work plane, can zoom in on that area to see how that part looks that we've created. So at this stage I'm going to go ahead and in Aspire close this, and I'll say File, Save As, and I'll save this and we'll call it newel top decoration, and that will be in the resource files folder that I'll send to you. And back into AlphaCAM I can say File, Save As, and we'll call that newel post edit top done, and we'll save that as well. So for the second part of the demo, we're going to take and extract the face of the newel post from the model in Aspire. So we need to export that and an outline that is in the part here into Aspire. Now what Dave did for me was to take the outline that we had on the face of the newel post here and move it down 10mm, and that made sure that the entire face of that newel post is positive when we bring it into Aspire, which is important for the method I'm going to show of how to get that information across. Hopefully Dave could explain that a little more if you need some info on that. The 3D here, I'm going to choose Select Work Plane, Existing Geometry, and then we'll come over the model and choose that line that we've got here. As I said, this is 10mm lower than its original position, or the work plane is anyway. Maybe the geometry is too. And next what I want to do is come up to File, say Export to Aspire. I'm going to click the line, and then I'm going to click the solid model as well. Right mouse click to accept that. Come over to Aspire. As I've already saved this file, we're going to go ahead and hit New, and I'm going to make this width 200, height 1500. Again, I'm going to keep the XY origin position in the middle and set the modelling resolution to very high. Hit OK. Let's tile the windows vertical, right mouse click in the 2D view and hit paste. And what we should see being brought in there is the 3D model of the newel post and this outline that we've got here. So at this stage, what I may want to do with the newel post here is I can crop that back if I want, or we could even do that later. If I come into the modelling, we can see we've got the STL model, and the main point of bringing this data in is so that when I've got my 3D models here in Aspire, they're going to sit on top of that and I'm going to be able to crop away all the rest of it, and when I export them back into AlphaCAM, that surface in effect that they're sitting on will put them in exactly the right place, because relative to the work plane they'll need that surface to sit on in order to put them on the face of the newel post. So at this stage I'll just switch off the model. We'll go ahead and concentrate on arranging the parts that we're going to import in Aspire here. Okay, so the model we're going to use for putting on the face of the post here is a very popular model from VectorArt 3D again. There's a version of this that actually comes free with Aspire as part of the clip art as well. So if we come over to the import a 3D model icon, I'm going to choose the model called grapes. I'm going to hit open, and to start with that selected, I'm going to shift and select the outline, and I'm just going to use the icon here to align top, and then we can zoom in on that area there. So the key to this is I would like it to sort of just fit inside that outline geometry that we've got there. Now I could shrink that down, but what I'd really like to do is kind of distort the shape to follow the sort of wedge we've got of the outline. And so we're going to show a tool called the distortion tool, which is a very powerful tool inside of Aspire. With the grape selected, I'm going to click on this icon to distort selected objects. With the bounding box option selected, I'm going to hit apply, and that's going to generate a distortion grid over the top of the model. First thing I would show, just to show how powerful this is to come over this left hand side here, and I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to use B with the mouse hovering over that to change that into a Bezier span. I would grab these two control points and just make a very extreme bend in that to just show people looking just how much you can distort an existing 3D object. Obviously that we've got there is too much, but it's just to give an example of what this is possible to do. I'll come back over this and click back in the view here, again hovering over that span. I will now hit L on the keyboard in order to change that back to a straight line, and that should straighten it up again. Next, with these as straight lines, I'll grab this side one here and just put it so that it's approximately on the line. Do the same with this one, so that now we're adjusting this for the wedge that we've got on our outer shape. We could close that now if we want, go into transform mode and just shrink it down a little to make sure it's completely fitting inside of that area. Next, I would like to make a copy of this. So again, the easiest way to do that is hold Control and Shift down on the keyboard. Make sure that this component is still in transform mode, which will have these dots as they are around it now. So hold Control, Shift, click in the middle and just drag it down. The Shift is going to make sure it drags vertically. The Control will make a copy, and you want to copy this so that you've just got it overlapping as you can see it here. Let go of the mouse, let go of the keys. The software may take a few seconds, pretty hefty piece of calculation it's doing there, and there we will have a new copy of the grapes. And what we want to do with those is just make those even a little smaller and distort them as well. So in this case, I go back to the distortion tools, I'm going to come down. Because this is already been distorted, I would just don't need to reselect it. I just come to edit envelope, and here we can take this and I can go ahead and drag the points in, and we'll want to do the same up the top here. Okay, that looks a little stretched, so I'm going to come back to the transform object and we'll just move that up a bit so it doesn't look quite so stretched. And really you just want to make this so visually it looks good. If I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and hit close. I might want to take both these shapes, and if I want, I may want to center them in the part. So if I select this, I can hit the center objects vertically. Of course, because they're not grouped together, it's gone ahead and centered them both as individual objects. So I'm just going to hit Control Z in order to undo that. Apologise for that. So before we center them, that should probably be the last thing I do in this case. I'm going to make the edits to this bottom one because I don't want to group them together yet. If I zoom in now, you can see that I've got this odd overlap here between the two, So what I'm going to do is just crop this area out where they overlap. So you're going to select the bottom set first, shift and select the top set, and we're going to crop them. Before I do that, I'm going to save this just so you have a copy of it in position. So File, Save As, and we'll just call this newel grapes in position. And that'll be an Aspire file. So once that's saved, what we're going to do is take the bottom set and we're going to use the top set effectively as the cookie cutter. So I'm going to select this, shift and select this, and I'm going to say clear area of selected components outside the selected vectors. In this case I want to select the other one because I want a clear area of selected component inside the selected vectors. I want to crop out the area that's overlapped by the top one. So if we click on it, it tells me that it needs to be baked. That's fine. There you can see that that's cropped that to the top one. If I want to clean up this, what I'm going to do is select that bottom one, come into the sculpting tools, and normally what I would do is just take the smooth and the values I've got here around 50, probably strength around 30, and just rub over that edge so that I get a nice transition between the two of those. If I want, I could even take some of this data out. I use the undo command. We'll make sure we have a fairly small diameter, hold shift down and click, and I can just erase data if I want to. Hit keep, hit OK. It'll draw that set back in there for me. Now what I would want to do is take both of those, select them both, and then use the command right mouse click and group in order to group them together as if they were a single component. And now I can take and shift and select this outline, and we can center them in that. So there you can see the difference between centering it if it's a group and centering it as two separate objects. So I apologize for that earlier. Next, we want to be able to take these back into position on top of the newel post. As I said before, it's important that they sit on the surface of our newel post. So if I switch that on, we can see at the moment they're stuck inside of it. So with the grape group selected, I'm going to right mouse click and change the combine mode to add so that they're sitting on top of that surface. Now I don't want to retranslate the surface that I brought from AlphaCAM back into AlphaCAM because it's already there. All I need is the data that's under the grapes, so they're moved into the correct position in space relative to the work plane. How we're going to do that is to select the component that represents the newel post, shift and select the grapes. So select the component for the newel post, hold shift and select the grapes so that they're both selected, and this time I'm going to say clear area of selected component outside selected vectors. What that's going to do is crop the area of the newel post outside the grapes. I can see that I've got kind of a wedge shape there. If I switch off the grapes, I'll switch off everything, deselect, and then select just the STL, we can see that I've got the area under the grapes representing the curvature of my newel post in relation to the work plane as we copied it over. If I switch the grapes on, we click on the icon to convert the current Aspire model for use in AlphaCAM, hit triangulate, then we hit export to AlphaCAM. We go back to AlphaCAM, we're going to see they're brought in relative to the work plane, so the only part of that shape we're going to see, if we cancel the work plane, is the part sticking up above the model. And then I assume what you'd be able to do here in AlphaCAM is to do some work on that in order to clean that up, or to machine that, create toolpaths if you wanted to, and show how that would work. Now it should be noted that what I did between the two sets of grapes there is quite a quick and dirty fix. You could spend more time on that. We could fade that file down if we wanted, do more work with the sculpting tools in order to get a better transition there, but hopefully it kind of gives the idea of what people can do, and again how they can transition between the two programs. In AlphaCAM here, let's just save this file. We'll call this newel post finished, and then in Aspire I will close this Let me just show you quickly what I was talking about with these grapes. If we wanted to have a little cleaner transition between the two, we just switch this back off and we'll ungroup this. And then what I'll do is take this second set of grapes and I'm just going to go into the properties, choose the option to fade, click set anchor, click at the bottom, click at the top. We can see that fades them down. If that's a little too much, then I'll just knock that fade down a bit. And so there I can see by fading and doing what I did with the sculpting, we've got quite a nice transition coming down into the leaf here. And again, as I say, you could spend another 2 or 3 minutes and get that absolutely perfect if you wanted. But for the sake of the demo, probably what I did in the first place is enough. But if you do want to show this, you can show a fade before you do the sculpting. So we'll go ahead and make sure that we've got this in order. Again, I want to make sure that I've got the grapes grouped together and set to add on top of the other surface there. File, save as, and I'll call this newel grapes finished. Save, and so you should get all these files, and hopefully between them and the video you'll be able to follow along and get this all figured out. If you have any questions, then don't hesitate to get in contact with me.